Alejandro Kirk might be a demigod. That dude's swinging the stick like nobody's business right now. Go ahead, tank for the meat man himself. Had a pretty darn good series after a bad loss. We'll talk about it. It's on Locked On Blue Jays. It's right now.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile anniversary sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement ring settings. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. The Jays win 4-2 over the Kansas City Royals in a game that almost went down to the wire. 4-2 a victory. Alejandro Kirk is your savior in this one. Thanks for that go-ahead dong. And we'll talk about the hitting as much as we want, but let's talk about Jose Barrios for a second. 6 1/3, 7 hits allowed, which I don't like. Only 2 earned runs, 1 walk, which I do like, and 7 Ks. I think that's a pretty darn good outing for Jose Barrios.
Yeah, and one that didn't start very well. He gave up those 2 runs in the first 2 innings, including a solo, and you thought, oh no, after both of us had got on here and said, hey, these 3 starts in a row, well, that's, giving us a little bit of confidence, and maybe he's turned some stuff around. To give up those 2 runs early was definitely scary, but he does what, has definitely at least been one strength this year, ability to pitch deep into games. He can go deep even if he's given up some runs. And the next 4 1/3 innings, he threw shutout. And a lot of those hits he gave up in those first 2 innings, I believe at least 4, if not 5 of them came in the first 2 innings. So to settle down after that and have a outing, I know the detractors are going to say it was like the AAA Royals, and I get but at this point, at this point with Jose Barrios, every time he puts a good start, you got to be happy with it. And you can say, I think fairly objectively, it's not like 4 amazing starts, but it's 4 good starts in a row that he's put together, all in the month of July. So he, for the first time, really had a good month. And I'm very happy with that. I think that maybe it's some sort of corner that's being turned right now for Barrios.
Yeah, Barrios' last 4 starts, all of them 3 earned runs or less, 3 of which have at least 6 strikeouts, one of which was a 13 strikeout game, his last outing against Philadelphia in the Rogers Center. He's been pretty good. He's brought his ERA in his last 5 games down from 5.86 to 5.22, which still isn't a good ERA, but it's a lot of progress that I think Blue Jays fans should be happy about. Over 0.5 of an ERA brought down right there, or actually 0.6. So that's pretty exciting stuff. Barrios definitely coming back to earth a little bit, and I think that that's a really, really good thing, because he was just terrible, downright unusable. You couldn't rely on him, and now he's becoming a little bit reliable for the Jays. In terms of the bats in this game, it was Alejandro Kirk who's your savior there. Bo Bichette had an RBI, but outside of those 2, it really wasn't doing. Vlad with a couple runs scored, a couple of hits. I still think you want to see your bats do a little bit more against Chris Bubic, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, but I think you're totally right. It's not just kind of like a Bubic thing. It's the start and end of the series is a story that's been going on and hasn't necessarily been covered that much because it doesn't really make that much sense. But the Blue Jays have not hit lefties this year. They've done terrible against lefties, and the numbers back that up. They're one of the worst teams in baseball hitting lefties, and it's a big part of the reason that I'm not worried about them getting a left-handed bat at the deadline, because they're hitting righties fine. It's lefties that they really need to figure something out against. It's confusing. I wouldn't necessarily know if I had an explanation, but Zerpa did it game 1, and frankly, got handed 2 runs in this game by Bobby Witt Jr. letting the ball go through his legs. They likely don't score. What inning was it? In the 3rd inning, if Bobby doesn't let a ball go through his legs, and everyone scores runs, like it's going to happen for you sometimes. But yeah, they need to figure something out. I want to do a stat search because Teoscar Hernandez went over 4 today, and while Teo or 0 for 4 yesterday, while Teo is having a really good year, I know he went into yesterday's with an 800 OPS for like the first time all season. I have this weird feeling lefties are really getting him this year, so I'm going to take a look at that. But I will say, like, there were, some guys that we've been asking for. Vlad getting hits is nice. Chapman getting hits is nice. By the way, Teoscar's hitting lefties fine, so ignore me. But better than he's hitting righties. So we need more Teoscar. Just an off day from him. But yeah, they got to be able to hit a lefty. It really seems like it doesn't matter the caliber of lefty that they're going up against. They're having trouble with him, and that's obviously not going to fly with a number of talented left-handed pitchings in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, some stats on Jays versus lefties. They had 228 against lefties with a 647 OPS this season, opposed to against right-handers where they hit 271 with a 790 OPS. Also, 99 home runs against righties this year, righty starters that is, only 20 against lefties. Still 20 in 21 games, but, probably want a little bit more than that. So that is definitely is a stat that has merit to it, and something that I would be pretty worried about if I was the front office, because you're going to have to face lefties in the postseason. That is not something you get to just not do. So yeah, I think they should probably get on that one way or another. Go get a bat that can hit lefties or figure it out.
The weird thing, yes, I'm Albert Pujols. The weird thing is they're actually like it's lefty start. So you just gave the starter splits, right? Like
yes,
it's lefty starters getting dominated by. The funny thing is when you go look at left-handed pitcher versus right-handed pitcher splits for them, their numbers are much closer, which leads me to believe, I don't have it exactly right here, that for some reason they're hitting lefty relievers pretty well, but they're not hitting, like they're hitting lefty starters to a 647 OPS, but left-handed pitching in general to a 729 OPS. So it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't, it doesn't totally make any sense at all. But yeah, they got to figure whether it's an approach thing they need to change or a player acquisition they need to make. They do need to figure something out with that. It is worth noting too, just in general, like we've talked about the offensive struggles. It's only half a month to be fair, but in 20 games in June they hit 50 homers. In 17 games in July they've only hit 17 homers, or 18 homers, pardon me. So
definitely down.
In general they need to get this going, but the lefty stuff really stands out, especially in series.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, let me tell you about Blue Nile, Ben.
Please do.
Blue Nile, whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as your partner with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft your perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com. And going on now is the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale. Save up to 40% on classic fine jewelry pieces and 25% on engagement settings. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today.
Hey, Bones, which NFL stars move the betting line the most? Starting July 18th, Locked On gives you the 50 most valuable players in the NFL from the odds makers at BetOnline. Available July 18th. Locked On NFL, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And I know we're both going to be watching to see them back-to-back MVP number one, hopefully. We'll see. That's Aaron Rodgers, for those who don't know. Let's move on, though. Series recap. Blue Jays get a 3-1 series win, and I think we can both slightly pat ourselves on the back when we were talking about, is this the worst loss of the season? For both having the perspective to say, well, if they win 3 in a row, it doesn't really matter. So at the end of the day, we couldn't have made the series opening loss the worst loss of the season. Obviously, they would have wanted to win that game, but considering they won the series 3-1, again, I know everyone's going to say it's the Royals. It's the Royals without players. They beat them close. My storyline and really how I feel about it, I'm very happy series win. Let's not forget the Blue Jays were 1-9 in the previous 10 games before they got the Philly series. They won those 2, and then they won 3 out of 4. So they won 5 out of 6 games. And I'm really of the right now beggars can't be choosers mantra. We just needed them to win games going into the break. Like, it really, after the losses they suffered, let's sweep Seattle, and the 2 out of 3 losses to the A's, I believe, just beat the Astros in the series. So good for you, A's. I don't think beggars can be choosers. I'm incredibly happy that they won 3 out of 4, and totally fine that they won the games close at this point in the year.
Yeah, I think that's totally meritable thing to say too. Totally justifiable. I'm going to go ahead and say that my storyline for this is that we might be heading to the All-Star break, but it is not a break for the front office. Start manning phones. We got moves to make in Blue Jays world, all right? Ross Atkins, get on the phone. There should not be a moment where your phone is not on you, all right? If someone needs to call you at 1 a.m., you're sleeping, doesn't matter. Pick that darn phone up, Ross. They got to start making moves, man, because if they don't, they're in a bad spot. Jay's got to do something at the deadline, pretty huge. So hopefully that Shapiro and Atkins are on it.
What's your top priority move?
I mean, at this point, I think I got to say reliever. They need more than one. I mean, they need to bolster that bullpen like nobody's business because that bullpen is bad. It's not going to win you a World Series. So you got to go out and get a bullpen. You gotta. I mean, they need everything. They need They need a few additions. They need a bullpen. They could use a starter. They could use a bat, but they need the bullpen.
Welcome to the dark side of the bullpen being the most important. Yeah, I think reliever is most important. Their starters ERA this year is 3.92, which actually isn't awful. Their reliever ERA is 4.11, which is much more awful because you want your reliever ERA to be real low. With this perceived Barrios turnaround, I feel less and less anxious about grabbing a starter, especially with the way Chicken Strips tosses that ball. But yeah, that's why I want multiple relievers. I think you can find a bat, like potentially it would be cool, but there aren't that many places to play a bat, like they don't really have that many extra spots. You'd have to find a guy with some versatility. Like I'm still potentially on an Ian Happ thing if you could play him at second and sometimes play in the outfield too. But or if you really got really traditional DH, but like you do want to give Vladdy and George the DH days too. So we'll see on the bad side. But yeah, like that storyline, definitely true. Interested to see, draft just went down. But I'm going to break it down because if we're just going to be completely honest with you, I hope Brandon Barrera is a great player. I've never watched him throw a single pitch in my life until I saw him on the draft. So, like, what would I have to say about that?
This guy is the future, Ben.
He said the MLB, so I'm a little lukewarm on him. But yeah, I think the draft is interesting, not for them acquiring talent for the future, but trades. Our prospect roundup, they're also about talent that they could trade. So it'll be interesting to see where they go. Series MVP, and for the first time in a while, a happy series MVP, not like they played brutal, so I guess we'll pick this guy. My series MVP is getting a guy that we probably should be even talking about a little bit more recently than we are. Matt Chapman is my series MVP, who bats .400 in the series, leads the team with 13 total bases because he had a double and 2 homers. The man homered, I think, in 3 consecutive series. 1267 OPS in the series. High strikeouts, but I don't really care. Matt Chapman's actually really turned it on recently. I went to look back as I just kept noticing that he's like multi-hit games, homer, multi-hit games. Over the past 2 weeks, so going back, today's the 18th, going back to the 4th, he's hitting 302 with a 990 OPS and 4 homers. That's what we like to see. His season numbers are definitely starting to get better. And like, don't expect him to be like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. That's not the makeup of his contract and what it's going to be. But now he's an above 100 OPS plus player. He goes into the break with 15 homers and 45 RBIs. He's starting to carve out the year that I was looking for, which is somewhere around a 750 OPS, 27 dongs, and like 80 RBIs.
Yeah, he's been having a really good 10, 11 games. So a guy like me who is going to call him out at every move and say that he's not worth it, I get to shut up this week. So good for Matt Chapman. I like when they prove me wrong. He's been playing incredibly well and showing that he deserves no hate. My series MVP is the meat man himself, Alejandro Kirk. That go-ahead home run kind of solidified it, but he was playing a pretty darn good series otherwise. He had 6 hits in 4 games here, a couple runs scored. He had a double, 4 ribbies, only 2 strikeouts too, which is pretty good. Yeah, he's been great. And he's been great all season. I don't think you and I have really picked him as our MVP all that much, but he's just been very good. I mean, and if you tack on the Phillies series to those numbers, he's been even better. In those 6 games, 9 hits, 5 runs scored, a walk even. I mean, the guy is just getting on base. He's the king of everything offense. And last year at the end of the year, like he kind of turned it on. He kind of owned the Yankees at the end of the year last year, too. It's like every kind of series they played, like it was Alejandro Kirk hitting a home run. And I was always like, who is that guy? And then this year, he was just like fantastic. So maybe he gave us a glimpse and he was like, I hadn't even started yet. And then he came in and was incredible. So good for Alejandro.
Yeah, no, I feel like we have picked him like because he's so constant. Like every series, like someone pops, but he's just doing the same every series, and that's kind of what's made him nasty the whole year. He goes into the break with a 315 batting average and a team leading 882 OPS. I will say something fun with the Blue Jays. I'm gonna swap it. If you look at Baseball Reference, like they try and they like who your players are, catcher to right fielder, and then a DH. So they have Zach Collins in the DH spot. I'm gonna swap just Kevin Biggio in there. I know he's not their DH, but like as the 10 players that they really end up using, or the 9 batters.
It's not Zach Collins, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. All 9 batters, though, that they use consistently, and I'm not even counting Danny Jansen just because he's been hurt, have OPS pluses above 100. So that's fine. But we're going to talk about that and how we feel about the team as a whole going into this All-Star break a little bit more in a moment. Before we do that, maybe you're feeling good about the Blue Jays winning 5 of 6 going into the break. Maybe you're thinking, I can make some money off this Blue Jays. Well, if you're doing it, you should go to BetOnline.net, your #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
We back. It's Locked On Blue Jays. Let's go get hyped. Before we do that, Ben, we do have an email with a question in it that I'd like to read.
Oh, you want to do that? I'm totally okay to basically scrap what we were doing on the end. It's a good email.
I was just checking the email. We got an email from Matt, who is a 2-time emailer now. He was our 2nd ever email, and now he is our 6th ever email. So we appreciate you, Matt. He said, hey, guys, got a question for you. Are you guys stats guys or eye test guys or some sort of combination? The player that makes me think of this is definitely Vladdy. His numbers are fine, but the eye test has been lacking lately, in my opinion. Fun segment could be going through the lineup and comparing stats to the eye test. Thanks again. Matt, we appreciate you very much. Thank you for emailing. And if you want to join Matt and be an emailer, right there, email us, lockdownbluejaysreal@gmail.com. Are you a stats guy or an eye test guy, Ben?
It's a mix, and it depends on what we're talking about too. Like defense, I'm almost entirely an eye test guy, to be honest. The defensive stats are confusing and don't really do much for me. And every single one has a caveat, so you're supposed to like put all like 5 different advanced stats together. It's just too much work. I can see if a guy's a good defender. Hitters, it's got to be a mix, and I understand what Matt's saying. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did have a good series, at least numbers-wise, against the Royals. He did have a couple infield singles. What I would say about him specifically, though, I tend to go with the numbers with him because, yes, this series Vladdy picked up couple little roller singles. He also consistently hits the ball about as hard as anyone in baseball. Like his average exit velocity is pretty ridiculous. So for him, I find that that's probably stuff evening out a little more than it's Vladimir Guerrero's lucky. He hits his fair share of line drives right at people. But it is important for sure to average out stats and eye test. I mean, if you were looking at Espinal, he was having his incredible month. Definitely a lot of balls that were finding ways to get through. I still look at Raimel Tapia, whose numbers have definitely gotten better recently, and I'm happy that he's a 275 hitter. It was like a 220 hitter before. But it's like that man has got the most control over a ground ball I've ever seen in my life, because ground balls, including the one that tied the game in the walk-off, would just find a way to the best spot on the field. So I do think it's important to be a stats and eye test guy combined. That's why I bought in on Chapman, because he hits the ball hard. And that's why both of us, I think, were feeling good about Teo for a while, because he was hitting the ball hard and it was coming. But there is you can be fooled, I think, by the eye test and hitting sometimes, because you don't remember how many times a guy walked or something and stuff like that. And it ends up showing you like, hey, this guy's actually having better at bats than I thought he was. But I would say defense, all eye test, hitting, kind of a mix. Pitching, for the most part, I'm in on the stats, but like obviously every once in a while you see it and you're like, well, that guy got a couple outs he probably shouldn't have got.
I'm actually such an eye test guy when it comes to pitching. I like if I see a guy has filthy stuff, like that's why I continue to give Barrios a chance, is because his stuff is just nasty. I mean, his slurve is one of the best pitches in baseball, and I don't really think it's close. Like he is incredible on the mound. His command isn't great, but the guy can pitch, which is the reason you got to keep giving him a chance. Also, you sign him to a massive extension, so you have no choice. But I think I'm also a mix. And defense, I hate defensive stats. I think they suck. As a guy who is a Jeter fan, I'm anti-defensive stats. So if you're gonna tell me that guy's a bad defender, you can walk right out that door. So I think a lot of it's eye test, but I'll use like errors, but like I won't like define a guy by his fielding percentage.
Even errors to me are incredibly flawed in some ways, because it's like,
oh, they definitely are. I'm just saying,
if your first baseman is good, you have far fewer errors because he picks more balls.
Yeah,
that just is what it is. I think Vladdy is in first baseman. There have been a handful of Bo Bichette errors that were Bo Bichette's fault this year. There have also been a couple where I was like, kind of cost him one there. Like that ball should be scooped. It was a healthy hop. So totally. Even like you want to eye test errors a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm not defining anybody by their fielding percentage, but it's probably the only one I'll look at. I don't care for DRS or range factor or any of that stuff. In terms of hitting and Vladdy especially, like I think that there's some merit to what Matt's saying. Just because I think it's also you're throwing him like a comparison, like a little bit of a juxtaposition of what last year's team or what last year's year was for Vladdy, where it seemed like every time he got up to the plate, he was hitting the ball to Jupiter. So it's a little bit different. And he's still having a really good year, which is why you have to look at the numbers and the stats. He's hitting 270 plus, he's hitting 830 OPS, like, and he's got a decent on base percentage, which is the other reason I think you have to go to the stats, is because you don't really notice when a guy walks a ton. And Vladdy has 38 walks on the year, which isn't shabby at all. So I think, he's having a really good year. Is he having as good of a year as last year? No. Was he ever going to have as good of a year as last year? Absolutely not. So again, mix, but can't hold Vladdy down for not being the man again. He's having a great year.
He's 23 years old, and he's still a 132 OPS plus hitter, which for those who don't know means he's hitting 32% better than the average hitter. He's going to have better years than this, and he might have an incredible second half and turn it around. Like it was I don't think he's like feeling pressure. He made some statements before the season that would seem like he wasn't, but it's a lot of pressure in general to be 23 and now being expected to basically threaten for the Triple Crown every year. Like this is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Even the incredible Juan Soto, who's having a better year than Vlad, don't get me wrong. Like he had one of the greatest age 22 seasons of all time. He's not just going to have like Juan Soto when he was 21 had a 1.185 OPS. That is outrageous. This year he has a 901 OPS. It's better than Vlad's, but like you don't just keep getting better. It's not like basketball really. It's a struggle each year to go up and put good numbers again. So yeah, can I say there's actually one defensive stat I kind of like. I'd never like hang a guy's entire defensive ability on it, but I enjoy seeing outfielders that have like what their route efficiency is like.
Interesting.
Because that just makes sense to me. That's a very simple stat. Are you making smart routes to the baseball or are you not? Because the only thing the eye test can fool you on is there are a handful of guys in baseball that have poor route efficiency but good hand-eye coordination, so they make a lot of diving catches, but there are other guys that just catch those balls in stride. So every once in a while, you could, like younger in his career, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., when he first got to left, was graded out at least as having bad route efficiency. And he has good hand-eye, so he was making a lot of sliding and diving catches. But it was like, hey, is this act good or is it not? Now he's improved that, doesn't need to dive and slide as much, and he's got a decent arm. So I do think he's a good left fielder. But in the past, I was a little bit skeptical on him. So that's the one. And then like with catchers, pop time is an interesting stat. Like I'm in on that. And like framing, but outside of catchers and outfielders, like infielders, you got nothing for me.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, that's all we got today. Thanks for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. Ben and I have a week of All-Star break episodes coming for you, so get excited for that. Now go make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. He's probably going to have a good pod after the draft. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. We will see you later. Peace.